We are up and running. Welcome to the Total Fitness Bodybuilding. I was going to say podcast then, but this isn't technically the podcast. Welcome to the Total Fitness Bodybuilding video chat, where you get to participate. My name is Lee Hayward, and it is Friday, August 30th. Welcome aboard. And the purpose of this video chat is an opportunity for us to hang out now for the next hour. And I'm going to be answering questions and topics of discussion that you have related to health and fitness. Any questions or topics related to your workouts, your nutrition, building muscle, losing fat, anything of those topics you would like to cover, please let me know in the comment section, and I'll do the best that I can to help you out over the course of our video chat. So let's see if this is coming through. And we are streaming now through the Total Fitness Bodybuilding YouTube channel, as well as the Total Fitness Bodybuilding Facebook page. So fingers crossed that this is coming through loud and clear and that you can hear me and see me. All right, let's see. As people are popping on, we have Lee is joining in. Welcome, Lee. Lee's a regular to our chats. Says it's coming through loud and clear. Thank you much. Appreciate it. Who else we have joining in? We have David joining in. Welcome, David. Glad to have you tuning in today. And as you're popping on to the live stream, feel free to introduce yourself into our chat window there. And let me know where you're tuning in from. And if you are brand new to the video chat, let me know that as well. Because I know we have obviously a lot of regulars who make the show what it is. But it's always nice to have new people joining in as well. And one thing that I find is a lot of times people can't make the live streams because we have an international audience, and obviously my schedule doesn't always fit your schedule. But very often, it seems like every week we get people joining in who say, "Hey, I love watching the replays, but this is my first time tuning into an actual live show." So if you are tuning in live for the first time, please let me know in the comment section, right? Whether that's the comments. If you're watching on Facebook, there's going to be the comments below the video. And if you're watching over on YouTube, there's going to be the chat window to the side of the video. So depending on where you're tuning in from. David saying, love the background. Hear you loud and clear. Good stuff. He says, I'm old. I'm on here from Wales, matey. Good stuff. Glad to have you joining in from across the sea. Right across. If I look out my window, I can probably see you there, right? I'm on Newfoundland, and you're in Wales, so right across the pond from each other. Awesome. So, again, the way these work is I'll be hanging out here for the next hour answering any questions and topics of discussion that you guys have related to health and fitness. So if there's anything you want to discuss, feel free to type it into our chat window. All right. And one thing that I want to address now, this was actually something that came up on our Muscle After 40 VIP coaching group today. And I just wanted to address it because it's a common issue that virtually everybody's going to have to deal with at some point or another. And that is muscle strains and tweaks and injuries, bottom line. And one of my coaching students that I've been working with for a while, Derek, he's currently following a deadlift specialization program that we set him up on to help increase his back strength and his overall size and strength and power. So he's been working on this deadlift program that I had him focusing on each week, training in a progressive overload fashion. And he's been doing that now for probably a couple months, making really good progress. But he found that during his last deadlift workout, he actually felt a slight twinge in his hip when he was doing the deadlifts. And this is bound to happen, even if you're training with proper form, even if you're warming up properly and doing everything right. From time to time, you're going to get a few niggles, right? Something's not going to feel right. You're going to pull a muscle, strain something, tweak something, whatever. And when that happens, it's important to, first off, acknowledge it, be aware of it, and then back off the intensity of your training. So don't try and push through the pain. Like the whole idea of man up, no pain, no gain, and trying to push through pain and discomfort, that is a mistake, right? That is one of the biggest mistakes you can make, because it's so easy to take a minor little muscle strain and then end up turning it into a major injury if you push through the pain. But when you get those little minor strains, if you're aware of it and then you back off instantly and just kind of go into active recovery mode for that area, or sometimes you might need to take some time off that particular exercise or that particular muscle group and just let it rest up. But other times you may be able to work through it with some easier, low intensity movements, maybe some machine exercises or some just mobility and some easy stretching exercises to kind of loosen it up. But bottom line, don't continue on with the heavy training that you were doing that caused that muscle strain to begin with. And this is very common, especially with obviously when it comes to deadlifts, back, hips, hamstrings. Those are kind of the big ones you'll find there. When it comes to squats, could be again back, hips, hamstrings. Those are tend to be the big ones that a lot of people strain there as well. If you're doing work for your upper body, like the shoulders, the elbows, those are areas that can really be susceptible to injury. And again, when you do have those niggles, those little aches and pains, be aware of it and back off the intensity for a few weeks. And then when you do get back into training again for those particular exercises or those particular muscle groups, start off lighter than you were before. So whatever it is, like let's just say you were working up to 200 pounds in a particular exercise. Well, when you go back to it, maybe start off with half that and just kind of go through the motions and then build it up slowly, week by week by week, and take a few weeks to build it back up to your previous level. And then you should be able to match your previous working weight and hopefully even surpass it. But this is critical because I've seen it so often where guys sometimes they'll have a little minor strain or an injury or a muscle pull, and then probably take a week or two off. And then they almost feel guilty because they took time off and they're like, oh, I got to make up for that missed workout or for that rest time that I gave myself. And then they go too much too soon and end up taking that minor injury and then turn it into a major one, right? So this is critical because a lot of times when we are in the gym training, your body's constantly giving you, it's constantly talking to you. It's giving you messages. It's almost like the check engine light on the dashboard flashing there, right? When you get those little signals, don't ignore it. Just like you shouldn't ignore the check engine light when it pops onto the dash, you shouldn't ignore this either. So when you get those little warning signs, heed them. And if you do it the proper way, then you can usually get through it without any major injury in the process and get back to proper training and proper workouts again as soon as possible. All right, let's see who else we got joining in here. We got a lot of people popping on to our live stream right now. Good stuff. We have Roberts joining in. This is just now coming through. Ready for an informative info. Okay, good stuff. Glad to have you joining, Roberts. We've got Art joining in. Welcome, Art. Let's see. Good stuff. All right, Art's joining in. Welcome. Let's see who else we have there. We have Craig is joining in. Welcome, Craig. Good stuff. Okay, we got a lot of people joining in. We got David joining in. Excellent. Glad to have you joining, David. And David's a member of the Muscle After 40 program and has made a very impressive Muscle After 40 transformation. I know we were just chatting and reviewing some progress pictures, and he's really filled out his frame with lean muscle. So again, kudos to that. Kudos to you for that. All right, let's jump in. I think there's some questions coming through here now. All right, let's see what we have. David says, 3-day all-body routine. Do you recommend it? Yes, old videos with you and your dad. 3 days total body workouts. Yeah, I'm a huge fan of that. And that's still kind of the foundation of my training now. I mean, I love total body workouts, and I've really, in recent years, that's kind of the foundation that I've really embraced with my schedule, with my goals, and this just my situation in life at this stage. I find that is ideal. And I'm going to break down the differences between body part splits and total body workouts, because that's kind of like the two major ones. Now, there's all kinds of different variations of that. Like you can have a push-pull legs, you can have an upper-lower split or something like that. But generally speaking, you have some sort of split routine or some sort of total body routine. You see that very common with workout splits. I've kind of moved into the total body at this stage of the game because, one, you're getting to hit all your major muscle groups frequently. And if you're not as consistent with your workouts, which, let's be honest, a lot of people aren't, if you're doing total body workouts, at least you're hitting all your major muscle groups each time you go to the gym. Whereas if you're doing a split routine and you're not consistent with your workouts, you can have very large gaps between muscle groups. So let's just say you're hitting one body part per day, hitting each muscle group once a week, and you end up taking a few days off, or you miss some time for whatever reason, whether you're busy with work, family issues, traveling. I know this is a long weekend coming up, so maybe you're heading out of town or whatever. Something disrupts your schedule and you end up missing some time. Well, if you're only hitting each muscle group once a week when you actually do make it to the gym, if you miss some time, now you have this big long gap. And it's a week or more, maybe even a couple weeks or more before you get around to hitting that same muscle group again. And that's not ideal for optimal progress. I would much rather have shorter, more frequent workouts, or shorter, more frequent body part workouts, than having big, large gaps between them. So that's why I like the total body workouts, because it fits my schedule. And it's very forgiving for those who are not as consistent. Another thing that I like about it is you do a little bit of stimulation for a lot of different muscle groups, and you don't get painfully sore in any one area. Whereas if you go in there and do chest day, back day, leg day, whatever, very often you're going to be painfully sore in that muscle group afterwards, because you went in there and kind of like overkill. You did a lot for one particular area. Sometimes that's not needed, especially for the average gym goer. Like, you just need to go in there, stimulate the muscle, let it rest, recover, and grow. You don't need to go in there and annihilate it or overkill it. You just need to go in there and provide some light muscle stimulation. And I don't mean light as in training light, but I mean brief muscle stimulation. That's a better word to use. Like, if you go in there and just, let's say you do one exercise for your chest, whatever it is, maybe it's a chest press or a bench press or dips or push-ups or whatever, and you really work that exercise hard and you push yourself to momentary muscular failure, like, you've just stimulated it. Going in there and trying to repeat that with a bunch of different chest press variations, like flat bench, incline bench, dumbbell bench, chest press machines, and then flies and yada yada yada, it's like overkill for the muscle. And it's kind of like digging you into a rut, and it's delaying the recovery process, because like once you stimulate it, you just need to let it rest, recover, and grow. But the cool thing about total body workouts, and the way that I like to go about them, is I incorporate variety within the workouts themselves. So even though I'm doing usually one major movement or one major exercise per muscle group, I change it up within the workouts. So, hey, this workout, it might be a bench press for the chest. The next workout, it might be a dumbbell press, or it might be some fly variations or whatever. Same thing when it comes to back. Like, one day it might be a deadlift as the main back mover. Next day it could be a bent over row as the main back mover. Next day it could be, some sort of machine row. So I usually choose one exercise per movement pattern. So like horizontal press, horizontal pull, overhead press, overhead pull, a leg press or a squat, and then do some work for the core. Usually, some abdominal, some lower back work, and then, maybe some isolation work for biceps and triceps. Something along those lines. And if you kind of do that frequently, you can stimulate all your major muscle groups in balance and proportion, and do so relatively safely, because there's not a lot of repetitive movement strain on the joints, tendons, and ligaments. So I find that it doesn't bother the elbows or the knees as much as going in there and blasting out 20 sets for chest, or blasting out 20 sets for legs, or 20 sets for back, or whatever, like the old school body part splits. I like the total body, just doing a little bit for a lot, and I find it's a lot easier to rest, recover, and grow, and not suffer the injuries and the delayed onset muscle soreness. So that's my personal recommendation. But with that being said, can you still make progress with body part splits? Absolutely. Right? If you have the time and the dedication and the recovery that you can do the body part splits, I mean, it certainly does work. I mean, back when I was competing in bodybuilding and working out, 6 days a week, I mean, I used to do the body part splits and found them very effective. But now, I mean, I'm not training for bodybuilding anymore, and I'm not spending 6 days a week in the gym anymore. So splitting it up into a total body workout just fits me and my schedule better at this stage of the game. But yeah, by all means, you can certainly do it, and I do recommend it. All right, what else we got? We have another question. What about doing calisthenics every day? What do you think of that? I, I'm not a fan of the everyday thing. Like, don't take every day literally. It's okay to take rest days if needed, because some people really try and, oh, I got to work out every day. I got to do this every day. And it leads to the all or nothing trap. Like, focus on doing the best you can for today. So if today you're feeling good, today you're going to go do the gym or you're going to do a calisthenics workout or whatever, like, do the best you can for today. And then let's reassess and see what we're going to do tomorrow. I mean, if you're feeling good tomorrow and you want to train again, then hey, by all means, go for it. But if you're not feeling good, or maybe you're feeling sore or stiff, or you're tired, or you're not fully recovered, it's okay to take a rest day, or maybe do some other form of exercise. Like, hey, let's just do some easy cardio. Like, let's go for a walk, right? Let's just do something like that instead of pushing yourself with resistance training. So the whole everyday thing, I'm not a fan of that, because again, that very often leads to the all or nothing trap. I like to focus on, let's do the best we can for today, right? And another thing that I'm not a fan of when it comes to everyday things is because a lot of times when people do get into a routine, let's just say you are exercising every day and then you end up missing a day. Then some people are like, oh, I ruined my perfect streak, right? I was working out every day for the last month, right? Never missed a day. And then, oh, something happened, yada, yada, and I missed a day or two. And then they start to beat themselves up. And then they're like, they could stay stuck in a rut for several days or several weeks or sometimes several months before they finally muster up the motivation to start again. Whereas just every day, it's a fresh start. Every day, just do the best you can for today. All right, don't get hung up on having your perfect streak or anything like that. Just day by day, right? Take it one day at a time. Let's see what else we got there. We have conscious Aether, I think. What are some other things you love to do aside from fitness and YouTube, etc.? Well, one thing, I guess it is still fitness related, but I love cycling. That's something that I really love to do, and that's a big part of my fitness routine. So outside of gym fitness is cycling fitness. In fact, this morning I went for a nice bike ride. That's something I do quite a bit. I mean, I probably actually, especially in the summertime, I spend more time on the bike than I do in the weight room, and I really enjoy it. I mean, it's great exercise, but the main reason I'm doing it is because I enjoy it. Right, that's the big thing. I just love the outdoors. I love the adventure. I just love that. Other things I like doing, something I got into this summer as well. Stand up paddle boarding. I got myself a stand up paddle board, and haven't used it a whole lot, but I've used it several times, and that's a lot of fun. I mean, it's not a hard workout in terms of like strenuous. I mean, now I'm sure like anything, you could make it as strenuous as you want if you push yourself. But I find it's a really good workout for balance and stability. And anybody who's ever used a paddle board or surfboard or anything like that, like, I mean, it definitely does work your stabilizer muscles and your balance and coordination. And I find that's been a lot of fun. So that's another thing that I really enjoy. But just the outdoors in general, like getting outside camping, getting outside hiking, just being outdoors, that's a lot of fun. That's something I really enjoy. What else do I enjoy? Spending time with the family. My son is in music lessons, and he does some live performances now. I've actually, if you follow me on Facebook, I posted up some videos of some of Harvey's music performances. Supporting him and going to watch some of those, that's another thing that I love to do, right? Those are all things. But yeah, I mean, I could go on and on, but I like to have that well-balanced lifestyle. And the thing is, fitness plays a big role in that, because when you're fit, when you're healthy, when you don't have any things that are holding you back, when your body is not holding you back from doing the things you want to do, then you can live life to the fullest. Because it's so sad when I see friends and family members and that who I would love to be able to go camping, or I would love to be able to go bike riding or hiking or spending time outdoors, but they can't because their body's holding them back. Either they don't have the strength, the stamina, that whatever, they just physically cannot do that anymore, right? And even just simple things, become a big burden if your body is holding you back. So that's what I really refer to as total fitness bodybuilding, is having total fitness so that you can live life to the fullest without your body holding you back from doing it. I mean, we don't necessarily want to have fitness just so we can go to the gym. The gym is the tool to build your fitness so that you can do all the other stuff that you love to do. So we really want to look at the bigger picture there. And then that's, those are some of the things that I love to do, but it's, having that fitness base allows me to do it. All right, what else we got? Who else is joining in? We have what's the worst fitness advice you've ever received or heard? Oh boy. The worst. I've heard a lot of bad stuff, but the worst. A lot of it's nutrition related. We see a lot of misleading advice when it comes to nutrition. Like, big one that's very popular these days is people demonizing carbohydrates. We see that a lot. Like people saying, "Oh, I'm on this zero carb diet," and then they're preaching to, thinking that that's the end all be all, or intermittent fasting is the end all be all, or demonizing cardio and thinking that weight training is the end all be all. Like, again, it comes back to what I was just saying before. Like, we want to look at the total fitness, and what is ideal for one person may not necessarily be ideal for another. So, like, painting everybody with the same brush, so to speak, and thinking like, well, everybody should go on a low carb diet because such and such a person went on a low carb diet and they lost weight. Well, it depends on the situation, depends on the person. Like, in certain circumstances, you may need a very high carb diet to meet your energy demands, depending on what it is that you're doing. Like I mentioned earlier that I love to go cycling. When I'm doing big cycling workouts, we're not following no low carb diet. I can guarantee you that. We're eating a lot of carbohydrates. And when you look at high level endurance athletes, they're eating a lot of carbohydrates. So that's one thing that, sure, a low carb diet can temporarily work for a fat loss point of view, but ultimately it's just creating fat loss because of a calorie deficit. Not necessarily anything magical about restricting carbs or whatever, but it's the calorie deficit at the end of the day. But you got to look at the bigger picture, right? Because in certain circumstances, that could be actually the worst advice. What else is there? I mean, those are some big ones for sure. Another one we already mentioned, like people think they have to work out every day or do something every day, because that leads to the all or nothing trap. And I guess that's another thing, like this whole all or nothing thinking, thinking that, hey, if I'm not all in, if it can't be perfect, then what's the point of doing anything at all? And that's where I keep coming back to, let's just focus on being good enough and good enough consistently and being better than we were before. Like, let's forget striving for perfection and thinking that there's some perfect program, perfect diet, perfect whatever. Let's just focus on being better than we were before, right? Another thing that I think is a bad, well, I'm not sure if it's fitness advice, but it's a fitness trend that I see a lot of people making, or a fitness mistake I see a lot of people making, is comparing themselves to other people. I mean, yes, we can be inspired by other people and we can look to other people as role models, but try to avoid the direct comparison of comparing where you are to where someone else is, because there's two totally different circumstances. You want to focus on being better than you were before. Like, compare the you of today compared to the you of yesterday. You want to be better than you were yesterday. That's it. As long as you're winning the battle with yourself, then you're a success. But trying to get caught up with comparing yourself to other people is really a recipe for frustration and disappointment. Because I'm going to tell you right off the bat, there's always going to be somebody who's better, and then vice versa. There's always going to be somebody who's not as good. So just like you're probably looking up to people and admiring them and maybe feeling jealous or feeling discouraged because, oh, they're so much better than I am. Chances are, at some level, there's somebody looking at you with those same envious eyes, saying, "Oh, look how easy they got it. Look how good they got it." Whatever. Like there's always someone better. There's always somebody worse at all levels, and this applies not just with health and fitness, but virtually every aspect of life. Like even if you're struggling with your, maybe you're struggling to make ends meet, and you're complaining like, "Oh man, it's so hard to make ends meet, so hard to keep a roof over the head and food on the table, and yada yada yada." There's somebody else looking at you and saying, "Well, at least you do have a roof over your head and food on the table, because they're probably homeless on the side of the street, living in a cardboard box." Right? And then there's probably someone else looking at them saying, "Hey, you got a better cardboard box than me. I'm living on the side of the street and I don't even have a cardboard box." Like what I'm getting at is there's always going to be somebody worse off, and there's always going to be somebody better off. So trying to compare yourself or getting into the comparison syndrome is a losing battle. Just focus on being better than you were before. Right? That's the key to this. And it especially applies with fitness, right? Because I see it so often, like even within my coaching students, like this is something that I'm constantly trying to remind them of, is people will look at their progress. Like I had one of my coaching students, like over the last month, he dropped 5 pounds of body fat. He increased his strength and energy in the gym and made some really good progress, but he's getting discouraged with himself. He's like, "Oh, I only lost 5 pounds this month." Right. And he's pissed off because he's thinking he should have done better. I'm like, that's fantastic progress. Like, imagine you could keep that up. Imagine even if you can keep up just half that progress. Like, where are you going to be over the course of the next year, 3 years, 5 years, 10 years from now? Like, I mean, the progress compounds, and it could be, monumental progress when you look at it and compound it over time. But in the short term, they're getting frustrated and going into this comparison syndrome and thinking, "Oh, look at me now, and oh, look at so and so's 6-pack abs. Like I'm not there yet. I'm not there yet." And again, that's a recipe for disaster. It really is. So focus on being the best version of you and comparing the you today compared to the you of yesterday, and just try to be better each day. That's it. Focus on what you can do. But those are a few of the worst pieces of fitness advice or that I've heard over the years. Let's see. We have Craig's joining in saying, "Looking for suggestions on how to get veggies in on breakfast without using greens powder. I eat oatmeal a lot and I can't figure out veggies with that." Well, you don't need to mix veggies with your oatmeal, but you can certainly still have vegetables with breakfast, just same as you can have vegetables with any meal. And one thing I want you to kind of like let go of is thinking that there's breakfast food and that there's lunchtime food and that there's dinner time food. You can eat whatever the hell you want whenever you want. Right? You can have dinner for breakfast and breakfast for dinner. If you know what I mean. It doesn't always have to be, "Oh, I have cereal for breakfast and I have a sandwich for lunch and I have meat and potatoes for dinner." Like it doesn't always have to be these traditional, stuck in a rut generic meal ideas. Like you can change it up. One way that I like to have veggies with breakfast, I love mixing up uh, omelets. So what I'll do first is I'll usually like chop up some mushrooms and onions and peppers, stir fry that in the pan, then add in some egg whites, maybe a couple whole eggs, put some spinach on top of it, and cover it and just let that cook. I mean, you might even add some cheese to it. Like I like to add low fat or fat free cheese on top of that as well. And I got this beautiful omelet that's high in protein, a good serving of vegetables. It tastes absolutely delicious. I mean, you can put some salsa or hot sauce on it or whatever you fancy for flavor. But like that is a great way to get protein and veggies with breakfast. That's something that I do quite often. Blender smoothies, another great one. Like you can mix up blender smoothies. You can put in like what I very often do is I'll put in like frozen berries and protein powder, but you can also sneak in some vegetables with that as well. Like when I'm mixing in my smoothies with the frozen berries and the protein powder, like, hey, you can throw in some frozen veggies with it. And when it's all blended up, like you really don't even taste it. Like I've put in frozen broccoli in with my blender smoothies before, or whatever frozen veggies you got in the freezer. Mix in a little bit of that in with your smoothies. You don't even taste it. So spinach is another great one. Like you can put spinach in with smoothies. I mean, it will turn the smoothie green, but it doesn't really take away from the taste, because spinach it's a very mild tasting vegetable, right? Like it's a great one to add. You can add it to omelets, you can add it to salads, you can add it to sandwiches, you can add it to smoothies. Like spinach is very versatile, and it's not a very strong tasting vegetable that's going to take away from whatever it is that you're mixing it in with. So that's a great way to sneak in some extra veggies. But you just got to get creative. And I mean, another easy one that I do as well is just have a chopped up veggie tray in the refrigerator. Like, chopped up celery sticks, baby carrots, chopped up broccoli and cauliflower and cherry tomatoes. And like, you can buy them at the grocery store already chopped up like this. Or if you want, you can buy the individual ingredients yourself and chop it up. It's a little cheaper that way, but it takes a little bit more work. But I always keep a veggie tray on hand in the refrigerator, and then you can just sneak some veggies, right? Like while you're making breakfast, while you're waiting for your oatmeal to cook, like you could be munching on some celery sticks and carrot sticks, and just get some veggies in with you that way, right? I mean, it's an easy way to do it. And when you have those veggies chopped up and ready to go, if you're craving snacks throughout the day, like you can have some of those throughout the day as snack food. Like a lot of times I will snack on veggies because I have them there easy to go, right? When it's ready to go and there's no friction, like it's just grab and go, you're going to eat it. But the problem is most people's grab and go stuff is like the cookie jar on the counter, the bag of potato chips, the candy bars, the candy bowl, the sweets and junk and crap. Like that's the grab and go stuff. But you can do the same thing with healthy options, right? You can have chopped up veggie trays. You could probably have some like Greek yogurt and cottage cheese in the refrigerator that's easy to grab and go. Like this is some of my go-tos. Like if I'm feeling a bit peckish between meals and I want something, I'll grab some veggies. I'll probably grab some cottage cheese and make a little snack out of it. Boom, done. Right? It's a grab and go healthy fast food snack. But again, those are some suggestions, and you just got to get creative with it. Let's see what else we got. David's asking, high reps like 20 to 25 or more, or do you like low reps, 5 or less? I rather more reps. It depends on the exercise. It depends on the workout program you're following. It's not right or wrong. And I'm going to give you an analogy that's going to make sense for this. How fast do you drive a car? Do you drive it fast? Do you drive it slow? Or does it depend on the situation where you're driving? Right? If I'm on a racetrack and I'm going down the straightaway, it would make sense to drive the car as fast as possible because that's the place to drive a car as fast as possible when you're going down the straightaway on a racetrack. What if you're going through a city neighborhood or a school zone? Does it make sense to drive a car fast through there? Probably not, right? Not only are you going to get a ticket, but you're going to put lives at risk, and it's just not safe or practical to do so. So we would drive slow in those situations. Same applies with your workouts and how many reps do you do? Like there's certain exercises work better for higher reps. There's certain exercises work better for lower reps. It depends on the situation. Depends what you're training for. Like for isolation exercises, I typically do higher reps. For heavy power moves, squats and deadlifts or things like that, I typically do lower reps. And that can vary again depending on the type of program you're following and what your particular goals are. So it's not right, wrong, good or bad. It just depends on the situation. And there are some guidelines where like certain exercises tend to work better for higher reps and certain exercises tend to work better for lower reps. And I actually made a video and a blog post explaining that. If you do a search for Lee Hayward, how many reps to build muscle, I think it's called. I think that's the blog post. Yeah, I'm gonna post that link into our chat window there, so you can check that out. And again, this gives you some examples, but again, realize that there's exceptions to the rule. Like this isn't some hard end all be all. Thou must follow this type of scenario. It depends. But I'm just going to share this for you. It's the all right, that should be posting through there in the chat window. It's how many reps to build muscle. It's a blog post over on my website. All right, we have Jason joining in. What do you think of starting strength? I think it's a great program, but it's not true a beginner's program. Like it, and what I mean by that is there's different levels of beginner. Right? It's like some people, they're not ready for lifting barbells and dumbbells and big compound exercises. They need to start off with some basic machine movements, right? So it's a good program, I think, for intermediates. So it could be called intermediate strength, but I don't think it's a true beginner's program, as the title entails, starting strength, right? I think for someone who's never exercised before, never touched a weight before, and especially someone who's probably a bit older and has some aches and pains and injuries or arthritis or something along those lines, we need to start off even lower than something like starting strength. We need to just some basic machine exercises to kind of lay a foundation, and then gradually start building in those free weight exercises. And once they have a decent level of fitness and they're comfortable in the weight room, then you can move into something along the lines of starting strength if you wanted to. But I mean, it's a solid program. I know a lot of people have followed it. A lot of people have made great progress with it. But again, I don't think it's a true beginner's program, right? I've a lot of the people, and I've noticed this more because like I work as a strength and conditioning coach at our local gym, and that's something that was really brought to my attention because like back in the day, I used to do a lot of in the gym personal training and coaching, and I got out of that and I started doing a lot more online work in recent years, like for the last decade plus. I mean, I've just been coaching people online. And then when I'm having conversations like this and I'm coaching students and stuff virtually, I kind of lost touch with just how bad a lot of people's fitness level is. And I'm not saying this to be negative or mean, but sometimes I just assume people know how to bench, know how to squat, know how to deadlift, know how to do all these barbell exercises, which a lot of people, if you've been around the iron game for a prolonged period of time, you just take it for granted and you assume like everybody knows how to do this. And then when I started coaching people one-on-one in the gym again, I was like, man, like people's form sucks. Like a lot of people can't even do a full range of motion squat. Like a lot of people can't do a bench press or you know, a deadlift and all these simple exercises. They just don't have the mobility, the strength, the stability, the balance, the coordination to do it. So that's where machines can really help in those situations, because the machine balances and stabilizes the weight and you just literally have to push or pull against the resistance. And once you build up that foundation, then we can gradually start moving into more advanced exercises, more free weight exercises, and body weight movements and things like that. Right, so again, it has its place. I think it's a great program for someone who's ready for it, but it's not a beginner's program. All right, we have Eric joining in. He says, on September 1st, I'll begin regular weight training again. I'll go light, high reps to start. Wish me luck. That's a good plan of approach. The only thing I have to ask, why start again? Like, why not just keep going? The biggest mistake, someone was asking about, well, it was bad fitness advice, never mind, but if we're looking at mistakes that people make when it comes to workouts, the biggest mistake of all is not being consistent. This on and off again with your workouts. Now, with that being said, I understand that everyone's probably going to go through different scenarios, whether you got sick or injured or yada, yada, yada. Some people, for maybe reasons outside your control, you have to take time off from the gym. I totally get that. But for most folks, they're taking time off the gym, and it's not because they absolutely had to. It's because they didn't prioritize it, right? Like a lot of people say, well, I'm not working out because I don't have time. And that's the biggest crock of BS out there, because you make time for what's important to you, right? Like, have you ever told your wife that we're not going to celebrate your birthday this year because we don't have time? Or we're not going to celebrate our anniversary this year because we don't have time? Or whatever, or your kid's birthday, like your kids, having their birthday, and you say, sorry, I don't have time to celebrate your birthday this year. We're not doing anything. Of course not. Like, if first off, if you ever did that, you probably would be kicked to the curb. You're definitely sleeping on the couch, but probably even further than the couch. You make time for what's important to you. That's what I'm getting at. Like, even with your job or whatever it is, like, do you ever tell your boss, well, sorry, I don't have time to come into work today, I'm not going? Like, if that's the case, you're not going to be working here very long. So you make time for what's important. You have to put your health and fitness in the same category. So if it's important, you will somehow, some way, some shape, some form make time for it. And you may need to get creative for making time, but it can be done. And I've seen some people who are extremely busy, working professionals, family men who have, a lot on their plate, and they still make time for exercise and fitness because they know how important it is, right? If it's important to you, you will make time to do it. So if some people were asking, like, what's the biggest mistake in all this? The biggest mistake is not being consistent, right? Like, it's okay to scale back. It's okay to do less than you were before, but go slow, but don't stop. That's the kicker. Like, hey, maybe you're not getting to the gym 5 days a week, but you're only getting to the gym 3 days a week. Or if you're not getting there 3 days a week, maybe you're only getting there 2 days a week. Or maybe, you got to scale back and do some home workouts with body weight and dumbbells and resistance bands. Like, something's better than nothing, right? This whole thing of starting again, it's one of the biggest mistakes, because whatever progress you make when you're on, you lose when you're off, and then you're just spinning your wheels. So you're always starting again. You're rebuilding the lost muscle that you had the previous time. And then if you go through another phase of, I'm on and off again, then you lose whatever progress you make, and then you have to regain it again. So, like, I know a lot of people who've been working on and off for 20 years, but they don't look any different. It's not like they have 20 years of experience. They have 3 months of experience on and off again over the course of 20 years. So it's like I made 3 months of gains, and then I lost 3 months of gains, and then I made 3 months of gains, and I lost it. And it's just this perpetual spin your wheels cycle of never getting anywhere, right? And that's where the majority of people are. So again, for Art's comment question there, I mean, kudos to you for starting again. I mean, I respect it, but start again for the last time. That's what I'm getting at. Like, let's make this the last time you start again, and we just keep moving forward. All right, what else we have? We have Bruce Doors joining in. Welcome, Bruce. Glad to have you joining us. Bruce is a member of the Muscle After 40 Blueprint, and he's more than Muscle After 40. He's one of our senior members. But again, congrats on joining in. Glad to have you visiting our video chat today. Let's see what else we got there. I'm getting a lot of favorites here. People asking favorite this, favorite that, favorite whatever. Favorite sport, your favorite movies, your favorite wrestlers, your best foods. Jeez. A fantastic boxer. I don't know. What is this? 20 questions, right? My favorite sport. For years, my favorite sport was bodybuilding. I mean, that's the sport that I partook in and did for 15 years as a competitive bodybuilder. But now I would have to say, if I had to choose one that I'm personally a fan of, not knocking anybody else's, but I just love the sport of cycling. That's something that I've gotten into, and as I follow, so like I followed the Tour de France, and I just love following that. That's something that I really admire, and it's total black and white opposite of bodybuilding. Like, bodybuilding is one type of sport, endurance is a totally another side, and I love the contrast and the differences between them. And I think that the contrast is what I like the most, because bodybuilding, I mean, it's a fantastic sport from building strength, building a well-balanced muscular physique and everything else. But even though you see some people who are very muscular, very strong in the gym, it's not always practical in some real world situations. Like, let's just say, like, endurance. Like, bodybuilders, a lot of times, yeah, they're strong in the gym, they're strong for their hour-long workout, but hey, put them through a multi-hour event of some sort, even if it's just a multi-hour hike or something along those lines, or multi-hours of physical labor. A lot of times they just don't have the stamina and the endurance to do it. I remember even reading Arnold Schwarzenegger's book, Total Recall. It's like a biography of him. And he was talking about, like, back in the day, um, bodybuilders, a lot of them used to get hired on to do construction work because people say, oh, these big muscular guys, make great construction workers. And then a lot of times the contractors and that who hired them said, these guys are the worst employees ever. He said they're big, but they're lazy, because they said all they want to do is they want to save all their strength and energy for in the gym. They don't want to actually put out any effort, on the job site. Right? So, bodybuilding has its pros and cons, right? But one sport, again, that I'm really into now is cycling, and I just love the stamina and that long term mental endurance. It's not just physical endurance, but it's mental endurance. But I really respect that now. Favorite movies, one that I'm into now. I just started well, it's not really a movie, but it's a series, The Lord of the Rings. Anybody else watching that? Came out on Prime just recently. I've been a huge fan of Lord of the Rings. I watched all the old ones when they were, when they were in theaters and everything else, and back on VHS tapes. But I'm watching the new one. That's the one that I'm currently watching now, Lord of the Rings. Let's see what else we got. Favorite wrestlers. I don't watch wrestling. Back in the day when I was younger, I mean, hey, like everybody, I liked Hulk Hogan and the Macho Man Randy Savage and all the classic WWF wrestlers. I say WWF because that's what it was back when I was a kid. But I don't watch wrestling anymore, so I don't even know. I don't even know who the current wrestlers are. It's something that you believed about fitness before, but now you don't believe at all. Ooh, you're stumping me here, guys. Geez, Williker, something I believed before that I don't believe now. Probably the what I kind of mentioned before, the believing that bodybuilding was the ultimate sport, if you will. Because back when I was competing in bodybuilding, like, I was the gym bro, and that was the end all be all, and I kind of like put bodybuilding up on a pedestal and kind of like shunned, these scrawny endurance athletes and stuff like that. Oh, they don't have any mass, they don't have any size, and I kind of like, pussy. And then I always thought, like, bodybuilders were, bodybuilding was the shit, and any other sport was like, yeah, they're a bunch of wimps and weak asses and whatever. And now that I've come to appreciate other sports, especially, endurance sports and things like that, and also appreciating martial arts and stuff along those lines, because one thing that you see, like, you look at martial arts, for example, the biggest and strongest isn't always the one who wins, right? It's usually the total package, of obviously the technique, but big one is the endurance and the stamina. Because, I mean, if you don't have the endurance and the stamina to weather the storm, you're not going to. You're going to get your ass handed to you on a platter. So I'm a big fan now in recent years of really appreciating the stamina, the endurance, and the longevity side of things, and not just, the sheer size and strength side of things. So again, it's really coming down to the total fitness side. I really emphasize that now. What else we got? I just want to move on to some other questions here. Dr. Mike on YouTube mentioned that standing military presses or standing shoulder presses puts too much strain on the spine. So is it better to do them seated? What are your thoughts? They definitely do place stress on the spine. Is that a bad thing? I think it's only bad if you're going beyond your means. I think it's actually good to load the spine and do so under control and lifting within your means, because just like all joints, tendons, and ligaments, I mean, we want to put some weight bearing exercise on them so that they get stronger, and you improve the connective tissue and the bone density and all that. We want to build that strength and stability throughout the spine and all our major muscles, joints, tendons, and ligaments. But I think what he's getting at is when you're pushing beyond your means. Like, obviously, if you are going to rep out to failure or train, super heavy, like trying to do 1 rep maxes or something along those lines, it's safer to do it seated with a back support. but I think there's a time and a place for doing standing. Personally, I do most of my shoulder presses standing, but I'm not training crazy heavy. I'm not doing, you know, like 1 rep max or anything along those lines. I'm doing it with higher repetitions, slow and controlled form, good time under tension, feeling the muscles work, and not just simply trying to, move weight from point A to point B. But I do like doing them standing. And I haven't had any spinal issues because of it. In fact, if anything, I think it's actually helped, create more balance and stability and strength in the spine. But I understand what he's getting at. I mean, if it's abused, yeah, you're going to create more pressure and pain that way. And another thing you got to look at is the form, because a lot of times when people do standing overhead presses, they arch their back instead of doing a true overhead press. They arch back and they almost turn it into like a high incline bench press without the bench. And this was a problem that I used to have back in the day until I had some people help correct me with it. And actually remember, this was back in the early or in the mid 2000s. I was actually training with Elliot Hulse at his strength camp gym down in Florida, the original strength camp gym back in the day. Like, we're really going back in the old school YouTube days here now. And he had some of those logs, those they weren't logs, but they were the metal ones that they use in strongman competitions. So he had some those there. So I was doing some log presses. And Elliot came over and was watching me do it. He said, "You're bench pressing it." You said, "You're not shoulder pressing it, you're bench pressing it." I'm like, what the frig are you talking about? And, he corrected me and taught me the proper form with it. But that's what I was doing. It was like I was arching back. I'm going to move the question there so you can see what I'm talking about. But I was arching back so much and almost like pressing up this way. But I had my back angled in such a weird arch that it wasn't a safe position for the spine. So, I mean, if I was lifting heavy weight, it could very easily damage the spine. Whereas you want to keep good posture and do a true overhead press. And that's another thing. If you have everything stacked, your body in alignment, there's less stress and less risk of injury there. So that's another thing to consider. And of course, we could apply that same knowledge to virtually any exercise. If you're using poor form, you're at much greater risk of injury, regardless of the movement. All right, what else we got? Behind the neck press, Rocky press in Rocky 2, aka the Bradford press. I like it, but it's not a heavy power move, right? I'll use it kind of like as a higher rep muscle pumping time under tension move, but I'm not a big fan of doing heavy low reps with it. David saying, "Great channel, no BS here. Thank you. You're welcome." David's participating a lot. Much appreciated, David. You're keeping the chat going there. Let's see. What else we got there? We have Jose joining in. He says, "Which bicep exercises give better mass stimulation? Chin-ups, barbell curls, or easy bar curls? Putting the elbows to the back during the curls is better. Thanks." All of the above. Like, I don't really like to try and classify like this is the best exercise, because what you're going to find is you're going to get bicep stimulation in different aspects from all those exercises. And the best way to stimulate muscle growth is to incorporate different movements into your workouts. So chin-ups, yes, you're going to get some great muscle stimulation, not just in biceps, but in your forearms and your back and lats and all over. But it's not a true isolation move for the biceps. Barbell curls is an isolation exercise for the biceps. The only drawback with the barbell curl is some people find it's hard on the wrists, hard on the elbows due to having your hands in that straight bar position. Hence, the easy bar is usually more comfortable on the joints, tendons, and ligaments, put you in a more relaxed position because your joints are not flexed and supinated to the extreme. So, me personally, if I'm doing curls, I usually like to use an easy bar, whether that's the barbell itself, the easy curl barbell, or an easy curl attachment for a low pulley cable, or dumbbells. I find easy bar and dumbbells allow me the most freedom of movement with the hand positions and less pain in the wrists and elbows. But you will get a lot of mass stimulation as a side effect of rowing movements or pulling movements, such as pull-ups, chin-ups, rows, etc. It all helps. Like to try and say this is better than the other or whatever. The only way we would truly know is if you had if you were to split test it and say, okay, group A for the next year is only going to do chin-ups. Group B for the next year is only going to do barbell curls. And at the end of the year, we're going to see who averaged the most gains. I think that's stupid because you don't want to just focus on isolation. You want to train the whole body and work on building all aspects of strength. And that's why you're going to incorporate all these different exercises, right? You want to build your total body in balance and proportion. And what you'll find when it comes to stimulating mass is the bigger you get overall, the bigger your arms are going to get. So the old school recommendation back in the day is they say for every 10 to 15 pounds of muscular body weight you gain, you're going to gain approximately 1 inch to your upper arms. It's in that range. And it's very, if you literally trained hard and ate in a calorie surplus and you put on between 10 to 15 pounds of muscular body weight, you can pretty much guarantee your upper arms are going to get about 1 inch bigger, right? Like that's kind of a very good correlation. I've seen that with my own size and strength over the years. I've seen it with a lot of my coaching students that I worked with over the years. So if you want to get bigger arms, you got to get bigger and stronger all over. But with that being said, all those exercises you mentioned are certainly going to help. And there's even more variations. Like you could do hammer curls with the dumbbells. You can do low pulley cable curls. I'm a big fan of those as well. I'm a big fan of the cables because they give you constant tension throughout the entire range of motion. And they're also, generally speaking, easier on the joints, tendons, and ligaments compared to free weights. Even though the movement pattern is very similar, if anybody has any tendonitis issues or elbow pain or problems along those lines, when you use cables, it very often allows you to work the muscle with less pain than you would experience if you're doing free weights. So keep that in mind. And as we're getting older, minimizing pain, working around it becomes more and more important because that's what's going to allow you to stay consistent. And ultimately, what's going to lead to the best gains is consistency. Consistency over the long term trumps everything. Real Talk says, fantastic advice as usual. Are you still working with hand grippers? Yes, I am still training with hand grippers, but my grip is not nearly as strong as it used to be back in the day. I mean, back in the day, I was worked up to, closing the heavy grips 350, and I even closed the limited edition 400 that they had back in the day. So yeah, I used to do a lot of like hardcore hand grip work. But my grip strength is not the same as it used to be. And I suffer from carpal tunnel syndrome, and I'm actually on the waiting list to get surgery for carpal tunnel. And I found over the last couple of years, it's been getting progressively worse, and it's had a big impact on my hand strength. So I've even seen my hands atrophy, like the thickness in the pad of my hands and stuff has actually gotten smaller due to carpal tunnel pain because the nerve impingement and reduced blood flow and circulation has actually caused my hands to atrophy a bit, and my strength has gone down significantly. So I don't have the same grip strength, but I am still using the hand grippers to try and maintain what I have and prevent further deterioration. But hopefully when I do, finally get around to getting the surgery, it'll help me. The healthcare in Canada is like hurry up and wait. I reached out to my doctor over 2 years ago about carpal tunnel pain because I've had it for years, but it was mild and I could manage it with like stretching and mobility and things like that. But it got to the point where it was becoming worse and worse and worse. And then finally I said, I reached out to my doctor. I said, okay, I need to do something about it. So he gave me a referral to a specialist. I went to the specialist, and then he gave me a referral to go get a nerve test. It took 2 years for me to get the nerve test after the referral. So I was on a waiting list for 2 years to just get a nerve test. And then when they did the nerve test, they came back and said, yes, you have significant nerve damage in your hands from carpal tunnel. Like, because he tested all the different nerves, and he says, like, there's a reaction test where they send the signal and see how fast your fingers can respond to the nerve impulses and stuff. And he says there's noticeable reduce in reaction time in your hands, and you have nerve damage. And the technician said, if you know, it's not mild, it's not severe, but it's above middle. You know, it's moving into the severe in terms of nerve damage. He says, so if you don't do something about it, like get the surgery to correct the carpal tunnel, he says, by the time you get older, he said, you could quite possibly lose the use of your hands. And I'm like, oh shit. Right. That's like wake up call. So I got to get something done. But I'm on the waiting list, and my appointment is now for later in October to have another consultation with the specialist, and then we'll see where things go from there. But I've been literally juggling this back and forth for over 2 years now. Like that's our good old healthcare system in Canada, right? Everyone says, "Oh yeah, you have free healthcare. Yeah, you get what you pay for." That's the way I look at it. I would much rather go somewhere and pay and get service now versus free service and literally waiting for years to get something done. But what do? Do nothing. You put up with what you get. Anyway, so there. I'm still using hand grippers. That was that was a long answer to your question. What else we got there? Is it okay to not have a program in a workout? I mean, some days push less, other days bro split, upper, lower, full, a combination of them all. I'll say this. Something's better than nothing. So, I mean, if you're showing up to the gym and you're just doing something, that is better than nothing. Now, could you make it better again? Yeah, you could have a structured program of some sort. Now, you can have some flexibility within that structure. Like, it doesn't always have to, be this set routine or plan that you have on paper, because you have to be willing to adapt to the situation. For example, like if you're feeling tired, maybe like you didn't sleep well the night before, you're not going to go in and push yourself to the same intensity as if you had have slept well. Or if you have like a stomach bug and you haven't been eating well, and now you're feeling a bit depleted and low glycogen, obviously you're not going to train as hard as if you were well fed and your glycogen levels were topped up. So there's all these things. Like you have to be in the moment and be flexible and willing to adapt your program according to your situation in the moment. But it's still good to have some sort of structure there where you are training in a progressive overload fashion and you have a direction where you want to go versus just, I don't know what the hell I'm going to do, right? I'm going to do bicep curls today and I'm going to walk on the treadmill tomorrow and maybe I'll do something else the next day. Like, there's not really any. It's hard to make progress and to kind of have any structure when you're just winging it like that day by day. But with that being said, winging it day by day is still better than sitting on the couch doing nothing, right? So, there's always a grade. Like it could always be better, but it could always be worse, right? So, is it okay? Yeah, it's okay. I mean, it's better than nothing. Could it be better? Yeah, it could be better, but you have to look at your situation. Where are you at? I mean, for some people, just showing up to the gym is a victory in and of itself, right? So if you're at that stage, then pat yourself on the back for showing up. Once you're already showing up consistently and that's not an issue anymore, then yeah, we want to get into some structured programs. Let's see. What else we got there? David's asking 3 meals a day or 6 meals a day. I'm eating 2 and I'm good. That depends on your activity level. It depends on what it is you're trying to achieve. Like, I would generally recommend at least your 3 squares a day, just from the fact of getting in enough nutrients. Because if you're not eating at least 3 meals a day, it's very hard to meet your protein intake needs. Even if you're eating 6 meals a day, it's probably hard for a lot of people to hit their protein intake needs. Like, protein is one of those nutrients where it's hard for people to hit it until they get comfortable eating a high protein diet. Like when I'm working with my personal coaching students in the Muscle After 40 blueprint, this is something we struggle with. And especially people who are coming from the old intermittent fasting, oh, I skip breakfast and I have a late lunch and yada, yada, yada. And then what they end up doing is they eat dinner and then they binge eat on junk food all night long. And then they start the cycle over again. I would much rather you start your day with a good high protein breakfast and then have high protein feedings at least every 4 hours throughout the day, ideally, just so you can get your protein intake needs. And for those of you who are wondering what is the ideal protein intake, it's 1 gram of protein per pound of ideal body weight. So whatever it is you would like to weigh, your target goal weight, have that as your ideal number of protein to shoot for in terms of grams. So put some real world numbers. If you would like to weigh 200 pounds, you want to eat 200 grams of protein per day. If you want to weigh 250 pounds, like let's say you're trying to bulk up and gain mass, then you want to eat 250 grams of protein a day. If you want to weigh less, let's say you want to weigh 150 pounds, you would eat 150 grams of protein a day. So a gram of protein per pound of your ideal target body weight, that's a good number to shoot for. Now, of course, some days it's going to be a little higher, some days it's going to be lower, some days you're going to be hungrier, some days you're not going to be as hungry. I get it, but you want to try to be in the ballpark and average that more days than not. Like try to be in that ballpark. And if you're doing that, then that's a good benchmark. And again, in order to hit that number, more frequent meals makes it a lot easier. Like if you're trying to eat 200 grams of protein a day and you only eat twice a day, then you got to have 2 meals of 100 grams of protein each. And that's a lot of freaking protein. Now, it can still be done, but that's a lot. And that protein is going to take a long time to digest, because when you eat a lot of protein, especially in one sitting like that, that's going to take a lot of hours for it to digest and break down and get utilized in the system. It'd be easier on your digestion if you were to break that up and say, instead of 2 meals of 100 grams of protein a day, 4 meals of 50 grams. That would be easier to break up and probably a lot easier to consume. So I'm generally of the more frequent is better, but there comes a point of diminishing returns. Like for me, 4 to 5 meals a day is kind of like my sweet spot, right? That's usually what I'll have personally. I mean, sometimes you hear a bodybuilder saying, well, I eat 6 meals, I eat 8 meals, I eat 10 meals. Like that's kind of like overkill. Like there's really no need to be breaking it up that often. But 4 would be, the minimum, if you will, and you can increase it or based on your activity levels. Like if you're really active and you need to have more nutrition, more calories, then hey, add in an extra meal. I would rather you do that than simply just eating more per meal. But again, it depends on the situation. Like that's the kicker with all these things. It depends, right? Like if we're looking at like an overweight 50-year-old office worker who's like, I just want to lose weight and get back in shape, and I don't work out that often, I don't have a physically demanding job, I'm sitting at a desk on the computer, on the phone all day, in traffic, commuting back and forth to work for a good bit of the day. Someone like that doesn't need a lot of calories. They're sitting on their duff, and if they're overweight, they got a lot of extra calories they got to burn off. So in those situations, yeah, you might want to go with fewer meals and lower calories and stuff like that in order to tap into burning stored body fat. But if we're looking at an athlete or someone who is burning a lot of calories or who is lean and muscular, obviously they're going to need to eat more in order to fuel that and nourish that. So how many meals a day, how much food, how many calories, all that, it depends on the situation and who we're talking about. Right? Again, I don't like to paint everybody with the same brush and say like everybody needs to eat this or everybody needs to eat that. No, it depends. It depends on the situation. Right? That's one of my pet peeves in the fitness industry is a lot of people, you watch videos or you watch ever, they don't differentiate like who this advice is for. They're just saying like, hey, everybody got to go low carb, everybody got to go carnivore, everybody got to weight train 6 days a week, everybody got whatever. Like, no, they don't. It depends on the situation. I mean, that might be good advice for someone at a certain stage trying to achieve a certain goal, but it's not like this is ideal for everyone. Right? So that's a pet peeve. And that's why I like to tailor these questions. And then when I'm working with people, I tailor their programs specifically for the individual and their situation and what it is they're trying to achieve. Right? Not just generic, throwing out a cookie cutter, everybody got to do the same shit type of program, because it might work great for someone and it might be totally terrible for someone else. What else we got there? Doing full body workouts one day on, cardio the next for the last 2 months. Would that be too much and only do three a week. Full body workouts one day on and cardio the next. If I mean, workout one day and cardio the next, that's fine because that's going to give you over the course of the week 3 workouts and 3 cardio sessions. That's fine. I mean, that's personally what I strive to do. I mean, sometimes it varies, but generally that's what I'll do. 3 weight training workouts, 3 cardio sessions. And again, that works for me and for my situation. I mean, if it's working for you and you're enjoying it and fits your schedule, there's nothing wrong with it. If it's too much, you'll know. Like you'll feel the signs and the symptoms of overtraining and burnout, meaning like you're not feeling well rested, you're not feeling well recovered, you're not making strength gains in the gym. You're like all these are signs. But if you're seeing progress, like you're getting stronger, you're getting leaner, you're increasing strength and stamina and energy, and your cardio is improving, like as long as you're seeing progress, then it's working and you can keep doing it. But if it's not working, or worse, you're even losing strength, like that's another sign. When it comes to overtraining, it's not just not making progress, but a lot of times you even start to go the opposite direction. You start losing strength or losing stamina. It gets to the point where, like, oh man, like last week I was bench pressing 185 pounds for 10 reps. This week I can't even get it for 7. Like, what the hell is on the go? Like, if your strength starts to backtrack or your stamina starts to backtrack, meaning like, hey, I could run, 3 miles on the treadmill in a certain amount of time, and now, man, I'm struggling. I can't even get 2 miles done in that amount of time. If things are starting to backtrack, that's a sure sign you're overtraining and things need to change. All right, so uh, if it's too much, your body will tell you it's too much based on your actual results. But if you're getting stronger, you're getting better stamina, better in energy and endurance and all that, then no, it's not too much. And that will change too as your fitness level improves. Like as you build up your stamina and your work capacity, like you'll be able to handle a higher volume of training, right? But anyways, what else we got there? I'm going to get ready and clue it up now because we've been going. I promised an hour. We've already got surpassed that one. All right, this is an interesting one. I've seen many people say motivation doesn't exist. What is your go-to to work out each day? That's from Jeff. Motivation does exist. I mean, that's a crock of BS. Of course, sometimes you're motivated. However, you don't want to rely on motivation because motivation is flighty. It's like here today, gone tomorrow. If you only exercise when you're motivated, then you're not going to exercise consistently. And the way I like to look at it is you have to make this part of your identity. Like you have to make this who you are, what you do, and it has to be an identity. And I'm going to give you an example that you'll probably be able to relate to. Think of going to your job, whatever it is that you do, or going to school if you're a student or whatever. Like, why do you do that? What are you trying to accomplish? Like your career, your education, or whatever it is. There's probably days when you wake up and you're like, man, I don't feel like going to work today, or I don't feel like going to school today, but you do it anyway because it's who you are, it's what you do, it's what you're trying to accomplish, right? You got a purpose behind it more so than just I don't feel like it, or I'm going to wait till I'm motivated, or whatever. Like, for example, if it's your career, there's probably goals that you're trying to achieve with your career. You've got a family to support. You've got, there's priorities much bigger than you on the line here. Your fitness has to be on that same level. Like it has to be more than just, oh, I'm not motivated today, or I am motivated today, or whatever. Like it has to be a part of your identity. It's who you are. It's what you do, right? You just suck it up and you get it done. And the more you get into the habit of doing that, the more routine it becomes. And then eventually it's, you may feel motivated, you may not, but you're going to do it anyway. Like that's the way it has to be. It's like brushing your teeth, getting a shower, going to work. Like, do you wait until you're motivated to brush your teeth? Right? Oh, I don't feel like brushing my teeth today. I don't feel like getting a shower today. And then, weeks and months go by and then, oh, I'm motivated to get a shower today because, I stink and everybody's telling me that. And you just do it. Like, just freaking do it. It's who you are. It's what you do. Right? It's part of your routine. And that's where people are saying like motivation doesn't exist. I mean, that's kind of a BS, because it does exist. I mean, there are some days I really look forward and I'm motivated to work out, but there's other days where I'm not, but I still do it anyway. So that's it. It has to be part of your identity. I think that's the biggest factor. Once it becomes part of your identity and it's something that's important to you, you're going to find a way to make it work, right? Versus relying on this hit or miss motivation, right? All right, guys. With that being said, I'm going to clue it up. I know there's still a lot more questions come through. This is one of the most chattiest chats that I've had in a while, and I appreciate the comments and the questions and the support and everything else. But hey, the time is ticking, and I have to get on to other things. So I do appreciate you for tuning in. I'm going to clue it up. And if you do want to continue this conversation offline, feel free to reach out to me. You can email me or friend me up on Facebook, and we can chat there. And I also want to let you know that over on Facebook, we have a community called the Total Fitness Bodybuilding Facebook group. And if you want to, we can chat through there as well. Like a lot of people, a lot of the faces and names that I see here tuning into the chat, they're actually members over on our Total Fitness Bodybuilding Facebook group. And if you have any questions or you want to share, workouts and meals and whatever, feel free to do so over on the Total Fitness Bodybuilding Facebook group. Just head on over to Facebook, type in Lee Hayward's Total Fitness Bodybuilding, and it'll pop up there in the search, and you can request to join the group, and I'll add you. So there we go. Have yourself a fantastic weekend. I know this is a long weekend for many folks, so if it is a long weekend for you, hopefully you have a good one and enjoy yourself. And I'll talk to you same time, same place next Friday. Take care. Over and out.